fantastic turnout and a really brilliant expression of an all-Ireland conversation, which always makes me very, very happy. A wee bit of context about why we have brought us all together today. And I think that the title that Roshi came up with for the conference kind of says it all. Certainly, I'm sure that you're all aware of kind of the context of Northern Ireland at the moment. And things are always kind of difficult, but it feels like a pivotal time for the arts and theatre, especially in Northern Ireland, and a time of kind of seismic change. And in the spirit of kind of moving forward the conversation beyond the boundaries of we don't have enough money, we kind of wanted to bring everybody together today to invite other people who have kind of gone through similar situations, how they've come out the other end, so that we can move the conversation on in Northern Ireland in terms of how we help create, maintain the vibrant art scene that we have, but also how we support emerging work from our artists who are coming through, who I believe are not going to have the same privilege that we enjoyed over this past 20 years. And just once again, thanks for being here, and I hope that we all have a really great 2 days and that we can kind of, at the end of it, be a little bit further on in our thinking through the sharing of all of our experiences than we currently are now. And over to Jackie Wiley.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Arches was founded in 1991 as a direct result of Glasgow being named European Capital of Culture. It grew to become an internationally renowned multi-arts venue, and its groundbreaking cultural programme brought theatre, performance, dance, large-scale club nights, live music and visual arts to over 200,000 people each year. This audience was further diversified via off-site programming across the city in non-traditional spaces and partner venues. The Arches pioneered a mixed economy funding model, and for 24 years developed a variety of income streams that operated alongside its public subsidy. All profits from the commercial trading arm, Arches Retail Company, were donated annually to the Arches Theatre Company, which was a not-for-profit registered Scottish charity. And a significant part of this activity was nightclubs. In February 2014, a 17-year-old woman tragically died in hospital after attending an Arches club night. And in May 2015, the Glasgow Licensing Board took a decision to curtail the licence hours of the Arches, effectively preventing the organisation from continuing its programme of clubs. This decision was met with surprise and disappointment, considering the Arches' long-standing commitment to public safety that made it a benchmark for late-night operational excellence and care. Without the income generated by this strand of activity, which delivered over 50% of its annual turnover, compounded by the difficult financial position which had been carried forward from the previous year, the Arches' business model became untenable. The Board of Directors reviewed all possible options for the future of the venue. However, in June 2015, they took the difficult decision to put Arches Theatre and Arches Retail Companies into administration. Following the closure in June, Creative Scotland and Glasgow Life hosted a roundtable discussion meeting, at which it was agreed that I would lead an analysis of possible options going forward for continuing a legacy for the arts programme. At the stage of establishing this process back in the summer, the only way of including the original building in these options would have required an immediate intervention from the main stakeholders, and it became apparent that their priority was with the artistic programme and not the building. In some ways, the Arches building was a victim of its own success. When clubbing worked, it delivered £600,000 of profit to the organisation annually. Up until 2014, it was held up as the future. A beacon might help other organisations find a way through reduced public subsidy. We're all slipping towards an acceptance that art must fight a business case to justify its existence. That as much energy must be put into sourcing income streams as into the creation of the art itself. Yes, there's a wonderful ideal whereby popular programming drives footfall into our institutions and creates a virtuous cycle of expanding investment. But by pushing for new economic models for the arts, we fundamentally erode the argument they are essential as essential as health and education, and therefore demand the security of public support. We must continue to fight for the necessity of public subsidy. As arts leaders, we can uncover new mixed economy funding structures, but we must also put our energy into fighting for a political context that values the arts as a critical part of our popular well-being, and therefore embeds the concept of long-term public support into our national identity without question.
You better not shout. You better not cry. You better not pout. Santa Claus is coming to town. We want to create work that is provocative, stimulating, relevant, entertaining, and challenging. You may not think so after you saw that. We are theatre makers, continually evolving our practice and our roles. We want to tour our work both internationally and nationally. We need to make work in a way that respects our relationship and our role as parents. We want to create training opportunities for local performers to learn with master practitioners and to encourage a culture of continued performer training. We want to collaborate with our other artists and art forms. We create work that is often political, but not politically motivated. We are fools. We like to play. We are Ramadan.
I'm Freda Kennedy. I'm a theatre maker and have been supported by the Reveal programme since the beginning of 2015. I am a freelance writer and director and co-artistic director of Maka Productions alongside playwright Joe Egan. Most of my work appears to be about women. This was never a conscious decision. I just noticed the patterns and realised that creating work about women was something I was clearly drawn to. It is a conscious decision now. Before I talk about my next project in development, I have a prologue of sorts. I am from Belfast. Belfast, Northern Ireland is the context in which I make work. In my years working in theatre, I've heard people say, down south they make work about the famine, up north they make work about the troubles. I really don't want to be the one who always brings up the conflict. I don't want to write something for someone to say, oh, another troubles play. So my head was melted thinking about my work until I came to a conclusion. I am a Belfast girl. Belfast is in my bones. It is the context in which I make work. I cannot escape it because it's me. It bleeds into my work, it inspires my work, and actually I'm really proud of that. However, I am not interested in telling the same stories of the conflict. I am not interested in hearing the same stories that are not relevant to me, to my generation, to what is happening now. As part of this project, I will create an oral archive with a minimum of 30 people in Belfast, Derry, Strabane and Ballymena, in some of the most difficult areas in Northern Ireland. I want to investigate the circumstances to which people are propelled into poverty. I want to capture authentic stories that lie beneath the politics and the headlines. As part of the Reveal programme, we have been exposed to different types of theatre, different structures, different ways of storytelling. I believe that theatre can inspire as well as entertain. I believe that theatre can create change. I believe that theatre can raise discussions. I want all of these to occur in my work. I feel incredibly lucky to be supported by Prime Cut's Reveal programme, which will allow me to explore all my ideas, try, test, fail, and eventually, hopefully, create something extraordinary. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Claire Lamont. I'm an actor and a theatre maker from Belfast, and I've recently started as head of a course in the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland that trains deaf actors. which is the first of its kind in the UK and one of only a few in the world. I started out when I was young reading Sing and O'Casey in my windowsill and wanting to be an actor, and then I went and I trained as an actor, and I was really lucky to then work with companies who devised as a way of working. I started learning sign language because as someone who was interested in visual and physical theatre as a way to express themselves, it felt like a really natural choice. So I started going to a night class 7 years ago to learn sign language, and that is ongoing now. It's been a really interesting journey for me, and I'm now in this incredibly privileged position where I work with deaf actors every day, most days of the week, and we're able to look at language and translation and what that means and what we can do with that theatrically. What the Reveal project offers me at exactly the time when I needed it is the ability to put these two lines of my practice together in a piece of work and to explore with some incredible people how I use BSL and English in a piece of work that everyone can access, regardless of what stories are being told in what ways. Last Woman Left is going to be in development in 3 weeks' time, which is terrifying and wonderful. And in the room we have some really amazing people. So the lovely Michael Duke is writing for us in the devise process. We have a fantastic artist that many of you might know, who's a deaf artist called Ramesh Mayapan, who's a theatre maker, performer, who's coming in to look at it from a visual point of view as a kind of visual dramaturg, to look at the meaning in both languages and whether we're nailing it. We have a mixture of performers who use only BSL, only English, and a mixture of the two. And what I'm hoping for is that we find gems within that week that we can then continue to develop into a festival-length show. I think that's all I've got.
Don't do that. Don't fucking do that. Don't do that. No. Turn the music off. Turn the fucking music off. The fucking turn it off. Turn the fucking music off. I'm Paula O'Reilly and I am a hatch artist here at the MAC just this year, and I'm very grateful and excited. What you just saw is an excerpt, very, very tiny. I've just spent maybe two weeks, over a year, that sort of thing, developing that piece on, sorry, I'm still carrying the emotion of the show, on female alcoholism. Really light. No, I'm trying, in the grand scheme of things, I'd love to make a dark comic physical theatre piece, kind of looking at female alcoholism, because I feel that it's not something that's ever really talked about, and there's a lot of glamour in the alcohol industry, and there's a lot of, oh yeah, I was a fuck last night, and I'm not one to preach or patronise or discriminate, everyone each to their own, but with this piece I would love to, if it helps one person go, fuck, that was me, and I should talk to somebody, or oh fuck, that's my friend, and just to, I don't know, because alcohol plays such a massive part in our lives as Irish, North and South, or UK, or whatever. So yeah, it's just about that. Really light, and I hope to bring it to full production next year here in the MAC, and then tour worldwide, yeah.
I am Stephen Coulter. I'm the BBC Performing Art Fund Fellow here at the MAC, and I absolutely love it. Fellowship is amazing. It's been amazing for myself, for Ryan, who's BBC Performing Arts Fellow here as well, and for the 32 across the UK who were lucky enough to be selected. It's a bit scary that it's not going to be there anymore, because the benefits from years past can still be seen here, and from other artists who have passed through it as well. To those companies, we're all part of a community no matter what level we're at, whether we're starting out, whether we're right at the very top at the minute. We are an ecology, we're a community that relies on each other. We can be competitive at times, but we do need each other to grow. And I would like to ask to give a little bit of a chance, whatever you can give to an artist who is asking for something, please make every effort to do it, because you'll reap the benefits in the long term. It may not be immediate, it may not be financial, but the benefits are there. So to sum up in one line, give us an inch because we'll take a mile.
The biggest problem independent artists aren't telling you about, beyond their immediate financial need, in the South, is that when they get a project award, they can't find a skilled producer to work with. The few skilled freelance producers working are inundated with demand, snowed under with work, and yet barely able to survive financially because of the work it takes to get these shows up and running. And these skilled producers are overrun because all the artists want to be in the festivals, because they can't afford to market their shows by themselves anymore, and because there's a greater chance they'll be seen and might get a national or international tour that way. And so all the work happens in 4 months of the year, with producers double, triple and quadruple jobbing, getting burned out, taking a job at a venue or festival or in another sector when it comes along, and this cycle continues. And with a few exceptions of a small number of freelance producers who've managed to make it work through dogged persistence and ingenuity, we're asking those artists to hand over their hard-earned money and their reputations to unskilled freelance producers. When they're in production, they're most likely working with a recent intern from a funded company or someone in a full-time arts admin job producing their show on the side. Ask those artists honestly how they got on in this scenario. From the many, many conversations I've had with artists over the past few years, not very well. If we're going to fund artists and we want their practice to grow and expand and deepen and become richer, and we want to empower them to think strategically and make long-term plans and extend the life of the projects we fund, don't they deserve to be supported in that? And don't they deserve to be supported by people who know what they're doing? In the South, the Arts Council introduced a series of schemes during our recessionary years to bridge the gap between funded companies and independent artists. These schemes were open to funded clients at the council and focused on artist residencies for venues only, resource sharing and artist development. There are massive gaps in the performing arts ecology, and these initiatives help provide stepping stones between the canyons and point the way towards a healthier and fuller sector. These programs are utterly necessary and have informed Emma and I's thinking about Prime Cut's reveal as it evolves. I think it's important that funded organisations provide myriad supports to independent artists throughout their careers, but artist development programs cannot and should not replace the need for artists to have their work funded and adequately supported by trained and skilled professionals.
My name is Nick Green and I'm an artist based in Glasgow, Scotland. And I'm here this morning to talk about my experiences of working with producers and being produced. Like many artists, I'm lucky to have been engaged in a diversity of producer-artist relationships of many durations with varied ambitions and differing contexts. However, on the whole, I've worked with producers on a project-to-project basis who are attached to organisations or venues, rather than those producers who are freelance and are working closely and constantly with an artist or a group of artists. So in the lead up to this talk, I've been speaking with various artists and colleagues about their experiences of producer-artist relations, and I've received all kinds of responses and stories. Like I said, most, like mine, I'm happy to say are positive, convivial, effective, and on the whole they feel fair. But naturally, everybody has a bad breakup story of one or another. However, preparing for this, I feel I've been given a chance to understand this a little further when asking my fellow artist colleagues about their own experiences. There was one particular response to my questions which enabled my understanding to grow, and here it is. My friend said simply, "My producer's role is strictly administrative. We're both clear on that." So this actually sounds quite familiar. I feel like I've heard it before. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, I suppose. It works for a lot of people. I have a lot of respect for the artists that said this, and they are a dear friend, but something about this idea simply doesn't attract me. I don't want the things that I do, the work that I make, to exist in a bubble. I don't want to be severed from the contexts which allow its creation, existence, and dissemination. I cannot and I will not separate art and capitalism. For me to do so would be naive and possibly irresponsible. At one time I might have thought that these worlds should be separated, that somehow art getting tangled up in a system which is essentially built on the continuum of human suffering and unfairness would diminish the art making, as if the art is somehow separate from a complex system of a world we all live in.
We just wanted to throw open the floor to everybody's here and to, if anybody has comments or questions to make about the 2 days, if there are any actions that are arising. I think we've done a huge amount of unpacking problems and issues over the last 2 days, and I think now we need to think about, okay, so what do we do with all this information that we now have?
In a situation where you're not earning enough to survive, you're only going to have people who work as artists who are able to be supported by other means, who are able to be supported by their family and go to, for want of a better cliche, go to daddy for fucking some money. And then that's why we don't have the diversity on the stages, and that's why people don't think theatre is relevant, because it is largely about one class's experience of the world. And I think that has to come down to the means of production. And so, like, yeah, I think, like, it's all very well and good to go, you know, you can get another job, or you can do this, or you can do that. It needs to be accessible, and it needs to be equitable, and we need to start demanding that.
Fair rates, a recognition that we need to be at the centre of buildings, that we are artists, even if we're individual artists. We need to put, don't care what we call ourselves, creators, whatever. We need to reclaim that space, the mental space, and the physical space. Thank you.
Jimmy was saying about us being in Glasgow with Can't Forget About You in a very successful play. And I came back home from that and I looked into the future with no work. Here is a very young generation of women sitting here who feel exactly the same way, and there's, you know, decades between us. And that I'm fascinated to know where all the men of my age were today and tomorrow, probably out doing film and television. Where are all the young men out getting theatre jobs? So there is an issue for all of us as artists, but there's also a huge issue as us for women. Thank you.
The fact that we as artists are so mad, so desperate to make our art that we'll do it for nothing is what allows the business side of this sector to continue exploiting us. It's what allows the government to cut the ground out from underneath us, and it has to stop. To me, the problem with existing models is that they're all built around outmoded ideas about what theatre is and how it gets made. They don't adapt easily to new ideas like the freelance producer-driven projects that organisations like Fuel champion. They don't allow for collaboration across companies or across countries, but collaborations with international companies teach us not only about other cultures, but about ourselves. One of my favourite quotes from last year was, "Believe that a successful collaboration is where your collaborator gets more from it than you do." Emma Jordan and Harold Pacific's The Conquest of Happiness was one of the best pieces of theatre I've seen, and something that I would strive to emulate. But thinking about the logistical nightmare of organising something like that makes my head spin. I am a firm believer that we should all strive to learn from each other. Collaboration is key. An example of a great collaborative initiative can be seen by In Good Company, which launched in 2014 by Derby Playhouse, which is the professional development programme for artists making work in the East Midlands and is delivered by Derby Theatre, Create Theatre in Mansfield and Attenborough Arts Centre in Leicester. At the centre of In Good Company is a group of associate companies who will make one of the 3 partner venues their home for 10 months and benefit from a full and bespoke programme of development opportunities to take them to the next level in their creative quest. In Good Company seeks to bridge the gap that exists from artists at the very beginning of their careers to them establishing links with organisations who will contract them and programme their work. This is what we need more of. I would love to be a director of new work as well as published work, but the difficulty for me is finding new writers to work with. Something like Get Your Collab On is an innovative idea that could potentially help link like-minded emerging artists together, and I firmly believe it could help fuel conversations about what artists like us need, what we want from the future, and what we need from the sector to survive. We will survive. Very much.
We just wrap up to say a massive thank you to the MAC, to all of our brilliant speakers, to all of our really fantastic participants. It's just been really moving, and so moved by today and this experience over this past 2 days. It's kind of what I always wanted, was to kind of bridge some kind of a gap between the artists in the Republic of Ireland and the artists in Northern Ireland, and I feel that this past 2 days has just been a really, really seismic shift in that conversation, and it's just really, that's a really joyous thing. It's really hard to live in Northern Ireland, to find a way of being, but kind of something is racked up a little bit, kind of makes it a little more fucking doable after this past couple of days. The Hatch artists, Reveal artists, I mean, it was just incredible and brilliant for everybody to be introduced to that new work, and excited about what the results are and how that develops. So massive thank you to Russia, who's done a fantastic. And to Stephen. Our team in Premcut, to Con, to Una, to Matt Farris, and to Denise, because nothing happens without these guys. Absolutely nothing happens. Last night didn't happen without Una Nicole and Con and Denise and Matt. You know, that's what it's all about. That, you know, that's the ecosystem that makes work possible. So yeah, thank you all, and yeah,
Can I just say,
cheers.
it's, coming from out with Southern or Northern Ireland, it was such a privilege to have been included in this moment for everybody. Like coming from Scotland and having kind of gone through like political debates recently and changes in our own funding structures. It's like such a real privilege to witness the level of generosity and like openness and like warm-heartedness. I feel really so lucky to have been invited into the conversation. So on behalf of the guests, I want to say thanks for allowing us to witness this moment, and I'll be so interested to see what this moment leads to everybody. So thank you for the invitation.
It always has to be in the round. Like, that's the number